This is what we need to do. This is going to bring that school to the next level.
That's Thinkering. This Thinkering process is going to be really transformational to all subjects that we're talking about.
The value of the Alliance is it's a thinking collective. Now we have a greater understanding amongst everyone. And that's not what's common in schools.
I always tell our students this can set you apart, make you stand out, something to remember you by. It's an opportunity to share. It's win-win all around.
I think the biggest part of what we do are the humans that we work with on the other side of that, right? Really see the human impact, the way that they're interacting and working with their community.
It really does have to flip. You should be able to think about that as your hero's journey, to be able to know this is how I was able to overcome.
And they really have this drive to want change. And I feel like continuing that mission is really important.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Welcome to the Thinkering Minds podcast, where we explore transformative ideas in education and innovation. Today, we're joined by Christina Heath. She's the director of the Experiential Learning Network at University of Buffalo. Christina's played a key role in developing the Pearl framework with Dr. Mara Huber, who's also a Thinkering Collective partner. Christina, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited to share more about how the Pearl framework is helping students embrace meaningful learning experiences. We came up with Pearl in 2017. We were charged on our campus, which is the University at Buffalo, with creating a system for students to really help them maximize their experiential learning opportunities. And we had looked at all the existing experiential learning models, and what was missing for us and was so important to us was the add value and the leveraging piece. So I'll backtrack for a second, and PEARL stands for prepare, engage, add value, reflect, and leverage. And so it is very similar to other experiential learning models, but we were very adamant about wanting to include the add value and the leverage piece for our students to help them just even be mindful of how they're adding value to the people they were working with, the communities, maybe their projects were working with, to themselves in terms of their own personal and professional development, and then the leveraging piece, which entails taking things one step further, not just finishing a project and moving right along, but taking a second to think through the what now. Can we build off of this? How can the community or the organization or the field of study build off of what we just did through our project? And then in terms of the student themselves, how can they leverage it towards their future goals?
The cool thing about, funny little backstory here, the comprehensiveness of the Pearl framework is impressive to us. And we were setting out to develop our own framework that solved those similar problems. And we talked to Dr. Huber, and she was like, I've already done this. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've already figured it out. And she sent us over the Pearl stuff, and our mind was blown. So can you get into a little bit about just the process your team went through to design and refine it over the years?
Sure, absolutely. We started out with a giant 8-foot glass whiteboard in an office. And we did tons of strategic planning and brainstorming meetings. We did lots of research on other experiential learning models, and also at the same time, kind of simultaneously with us creating our website, our program, our office, our campus was also creating an office of micro-credentials and digital badges. And so we decided it would be very smart to tie our whole process to the students also earning a digital badge. And we really just went through and we did a backwards design with all of this, started with what we wanted the students to actually gain from the experience and come away with at the end. And so we wrote some hypotheses, and then we went through the whole process of thinking through what do they actually need to do? What activities should we include? What feedback do we need to gather as they go through this process? What platform should we use? What do we have access to? We really went through a pretty pretty long and involved process in mapping all of that out for ourselves. And we would take pictures of the whiteboard before we would erase, and we filed them away so that we could go back and reference them. We didn't do it digitally. And in saying that, we probably should have had some sort of system, but we went old school and we did the whiteboards, and we came up with our first version using existing technology on our campus. Everything was free. We already had access to it. We already had our staff who was kind of being repurposed towards accomplishing this as a goal. And we just tried it. We made it happen. And based on the feedback we got from students, faculty, campus partners, we made some tweaks along the way. We made it a little bit more user-friendly. And another example is we even had digital badge titles that we thought were meaningful to us that followed Pearl. So the students would get like a prepare badge, and they stacked at the end to like a project completion badge. And the students gave us feedback that that wasn't actually meaningful to them. They didn't care about having a badge for each phase. They wanted one badge at the end that reflected the nature of their project that they could share on their social media, LinkedIn, resume, etc. So that was one big overhaul that we did with our badge titles based on student feedback. So always keeping the target audience involved along the way has been really key for us.
Yeah, tapping into the student feedback is absolutely crucial. That's why we're doing all the things that we're doing is for them. We understand the significance at the university level of Pearl and how it applies in just picturing myself having that digital badge on my resume, going out into the world looking for jobs. That's something that most people don't have on their resume. And it's an instant insight for the hiring staff to just see who you are, what you've done beyond that scope. And that's such a cool idea. When I extrapolate out and I think, what is that power like for somebody who's in the K through 12 system right now, having that same similar digital badge showcasing all of the things they do? And similarly, how awesome would that be for a college application to demonstrate, look, it's not just a resume here. It's not just a proposal of who I am and what I've done. You can click on the badge and you can see the details and you can get into the nitty gritty and see that I've accomplished something. And that's so cool. What do you think the unseen benefits there are of the Pearl digital badge beyond what we've just discussed?
Yeah, well, I think for the student, them earning the badge kind of signifies that they've gone through the Pearl process and they've done strategically designed learning activities to facilitate them going through that process. So the student should really walk away with a lot of information about themselves and how they've grown, what skills they've developed along the way, how they've either worked as a team or navigated an independent project. Like there's so many things that just by way of going through the digital badge process, following Pearl, that the student should walk away with. And I think that is not specific to higher ed students. That would be for anyone at any level going through this model. And then to have the badges. I always tell our students, think of this as something that can set you apart, make you stand out, give the viewer of the badge something to remember you by. And it's an opportunity to share a professional sample of your work in a way that you otherwise probably wouldn't have been able to. So it's win-win all around. And then for the admissions counselor, employer, whoever's looking at the badge, it's a way for them to get a sample of what the student has done, what they're capable of producing, and how they might function in whatever role or whatever space they're looking at the student to fulfill.
I think one of the framework's strengths is its adaptability. It really can be applied in so many learning situations, which is what attracted Thinkering Collective to it. How can K through 12 educators begin to integrate those principles of Pearl into their classrooms to prepare students for higher ed and the workforce?
Yeah, so I think the exciting and nice thing about Pearl is that we designed it so it could be adapted in all of these ways. And for K through 12 specifically, whether it be an internship or some sort of like travel abroad experience, or even a course project that is a little bit more significant that the educators are designing, if they use Pearl and label it as such for the students going through the process, I think the students will be more mindful of, okay, so when I have an experience or do a project, I don't just jump right in. There's something I do to prepare. Sometimes we don't even draw their attention to that. And I think that's a critical piece that applies to life moving forward, right? That's like a life lesson. You prepare before you begin things. And then during the engagement, once they get to that point, we've had them already set goals and intentions around what skill sets they want to work on. And we use a specific set of 21st century job skills called the NACE competencies for our specific activity. But any set of competencies or skills could be inserted based on the topic and the nature of the work the students are doing. So for K through 12, they could insert whatever applies, even like skills that they know colleges are looking for potentially. So they would be going through the experience, having those skills and the names of them and the definitions of them in mind so they can actually build on that for their own personal and professional development. And then at the end, thinking through how they grew, what they learned, how they added value, either to themselves, to a community, an organization, a body of knowledge. You can really make it apply to anything, which I think is so cool and exciting. And then leveraging it, the so what at the end. What am I going to do with this moving forward? What are the other people involved going to do with it? Is there an opportunity for a version 2 for somebody, myself or somebody else, to take this and continue building? And a lot of times I think as a society, we're in such a rush that we don't take the time to even talk about those things.
Yeah, absolutely. With the reflecting part is crucial. We'll get to that in a second. When I hear experiential learning, immediately what jumps into mind is just real world. It's real, it's tangible, it matters. It's not something that it's not theoretical. It's something hands-on. And I think it's important because so many students, like I have ADHD, so I'm bored with theoretical, and this may apply, it may not. But if I can put my hands on something, and experience it, it's exciting and captivating, and it drives me to participate. With that being the key to the framework, experiential learning, how do we connect those real world projects to reflection? Because if you complete a project, that's all it is. It's just a checkbox until you reflect on it and take away those lessons. Would you think that the reflection aspect is most crucial?
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly believe that. And even in certain scenarios where the students trying to produce or make something and the outcome might not be what they expected it to be, even an internship experience, maybe they thought they wanted to be in a certain field and they do an internship and they realize they don't like it. Those can feel like failures. Or if you're doing an experiment and it doesn't go the way you thought. And so I think the reflection piece is key in helping the student to see it as a learning opportunity and a growth opportunity, and to point out that there are still very valuable takeaways that they can bring with them throughout their entire lifetime. And so I think, to me, that is the most valuable piece in all of this.
When we talk about Pearl as a framework, the one thing that also jumps out about me is its ability to scale, like we talked about, to any environment, to any scope and size. What steps are you all taking to expand this just beyond University at Buffalo?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've started to get more involved with some initiatives through SUNY, the State University of New York system. And I know Dr. Mara Huber is involved with a lot of global NGOs. Most of them are located in Africa. And she specifically is working on applying all of these concepts in their educational systems. So that's very exciting. Right now for me, I've been focusing on higher ed and SUNY, but I'm always very excited to support and help Dr. Huber in those international endeavors in any way that I can. And it's exciting to see that it's working in other countries where their system for education is very different, and it still applies and it is starting to be successful.
So in short, Pearl's going worldwide.
Yes, very exciting.
What standout success stories from students have you seen from the engagement with the Pearl framework, and how have you seen it change their academic or personal trajectories?
Yeah, so we have been running our office really as it exists now since the 2019 academic year. And over the course of the last several years, a couple of things come to mind as far as really standout success stories from this. One of them is we've had thousands of students go through this process and earn the digital badge. And almost every single one of them has pointed out that the most valuable aspect of going through this process was the reflection and thinking through how to put language around their experience in a way that will resonate with their target audience. And I think in education in general, we know a lot of students are involved in really cool, meaningful experiences, real-world opportunities, and a lot of times they sell themselves short in the long run because they don't know how to talk about it in a way that will help them achieve their future goals or get where they're trying to go. And so I've been thrilled to see that's the thing that the students are pointing to as the most valuable takeaway through going through our digital badge process. Also, in terms of success stories, I think we've seen a lot of students either confirm or use this as an opportunity to change their mind and pivot in terms of the direction that they would like to go with their future, with their major and career. And I think that's so valuable. Like, that's a huge gift that we can give our students, is to experience it before they commit, so they still have time to pivot and work things out for themselves in the long run. We also have created a completed projects gallery on our website where, if the students give us permission to share their story, we've shared just completed projects, and we've used that to try to inspire other students to want to get involved. And we've highlighted the benefits that the students themselves have shared with us. So that's also been an effective way to get that peer-to-peer inspiration.
So the connection for students and learning is straightforward, and the obvious one that jumps out to me when I talk about Pearl. It's going to obviously affect them in a different way. They've not been taught through that framework before. And then once they have, it just opens up new pathways. What's it do to the educator who's using Pearl for first time to deliver a curriculum?
Yeah, I think it helps the educator have a very clear and structured framework to work within, where they still have a lot of freedom to choose what makes sense for them, and within the context of the experiential learning activity or project that they're doing. And I know an example of this is a lot of faculty on our campus like to use this structure for independent studies because it gives the student and the educator a clear outline of like the beginning, the middle, and the end, and the educator can plug in their goals and learning outcomes for their students along the way. And then everybody has a clear roadmap to follow. And it's also a nice way to keep everyone on the same page. And the way that we've built our specific system with basically little mini exit surveys for each phase along the way, at the end, we are able to pull out all of the students' data and share it back with the faculty so they also have the feedback. So applying that to the K through 12 level, I'm sure using any system that could be done in some way to build in the feedback right away, where you're not dependent on the student filling out an optional survey after the fact and having a whole bunch of them not do it. And I was really happy we thought about that to begin with, where it's just part of the process.
One thing I've learned throughout my professional career is nobody fills out surveys.
Ooh. So if you make it part of the activity they're already doing and you make it short and very strategic, then at the end you can get everything you needed.
Whenever I've put on a big summit for an organization, I always include like a little part where it's like, hey, everybody, we're going to take 5 minutes right here, pull out your phone. No one's leaving the room. We're all doing the survey right now.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, absolutely. You just set us up for the next topic perfectly, the future vision for Pearl. Getting all that feedback from the students built right into the framework, does that develop new tools and approaches for exploring or enhancing its impact?
Yeah, absolutely. We have hosted focus groups on the process and the specific activities, and we've used all of the feedback combined to tweak some of our activities. So over the last several years, the activities that exist now are different versions of what we started with. This has definitely evolved over time while still staying true to the Pearl model. That has never changed, just the specific ways that we go about it have evolved along the way. And I think moving forward, there's so much potential for this to continue gaining momentum and to be scaled on an even larger platform that I think, I'm not sure what that will entail exactly or what that will look like, but it could be scaled across all of SUNY or in another country. This is already starting to be done across their whole educational system. I haven't been specifically involved with the K through 12, but I could see how school districts could adopt this and use it for their curriculum. So I think the potential for the future is huge.
When you see Pearl influencing the broader conversation, just in educational reform in general, where do you see it natural positioning in its ability to prepare students for the future?
Yeah, I think students who go through Pearl will inherently be more prepared than those who do not, because they're being taught that when they have a real world experience, they should prepare, they should set goals. They should keep those in mind as their experience is happening, and then they should think about how they've added value, what that means for that experience, the reflection piece, and then thinking about what's next in terms of leveraging. I think students who do it once see the benefits of just small minor tweaks in your thinking even. And I think that's going to leave us with students who are way more prepared and ready for higher education, for the workforce, maybe for trades. We haven't even gotten into that as an area to apply Pearl. And I think that would fit beautifully with training for students going into trades for their career.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the university levels, not everybody's interested in that path. And so many people in high school leaving want to go right into the job market. Let's make money and start a career now. Let's not go into debt. I mean, it's the thing that jumped out at me first when I saw Pearl was it just seems so universal that it is applied to the students who just want to go and start a career right now, the students who want to go and learn deeper and continue their studies, the students who are just beginning to learn and need that guidance on how to go about that process. Like, what is learning and what's the best practice for myself and how do I get that done? So it just really seems to be applied everywhere. We've talked about, the secondary education and K through 12. What about early learning? Where do you see Pearl fitting in with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've always started with, K through 12 as kind of the beginning, but I think it could certainly apply for early learning, even getting kids to think about at a level that they're ready for, how to prepare and how to reflect after something happens. I do this with my own kid too, who's 4. When things don't go as planned, I'm like, oh, why do you think that happened? So that reflection, not at a super deep level, because I don't think, that's not always developmentally appropriate, but even asking questions, it could certainly be adapted to fit that early learning age group.
Absolutely. For the K through 12 educators or the university faculty who's listening in today, what advice would you give them about adopting and implementing a framework like Pearl in their systems?
That's a good question. I think being open-minded to trying it and seeing it as a clear pathway to really have everything be transparent between the educator and the student, and being open to using that as a tool to get everyone on the same page, and having those little exit surveys or opportunities for feedback along the way. We have always gotten really positive responses from students, and I think that proves at the end that it was worth trying. And then we see the educators sharing with their peers, getting them on board. So it's been very much like a grassroots effort still, even at this point of being around for years. And I think the feedback that we get through the process speaks volumes to the success and potential.
When you talk about feedback, your eyes light up and they get a little twinkle to them. Do you think that's the most rewarding part of developing the framework is the feedback, or what would you say the most rewarding part is?
To me, it's been because when we were creating this, and we started with the backwards design, we made a whole list of what we hoped students would gain from it. And then to me, nothing's more rewarding than hearing them say exactly what we had hoped they would. And in most cases, they've gotten what we wanted them to get from the experience. So that it's nice to be able to have that proof that it's actually working and to not have it be anecdotal, that like we know the process is good for them. So of course they're getting that. We've actually been able to show this is a quote from a student that proves that it's actually being successful.
You have been working on this for about 12 years now, right?
I've been at the university for 12 years, and I've been working on this specifically since 2017. Just a few years less than that.
Absolutely. Well, what keeps you inspired to push for the innovation in teaching and learning throughout all of it?
Yeah, so I love this question because when I was in college, I got very involved in different student leadership type roles. I studied abroad. I did internships. I was a student alumni ambassador. And I thought I wanted to go down one career path. Started, did not actually enjoy it, and came back to those mentors at my college, and they encouraged me to look into higher ed as a career option and to look at the grad programs in higher ed administration. And those experiences as a student for me were so transformative that I wholeheartedly believe in experiential learning, experiential education. And it's very rewarding for me to be in a role like this where I can, at scale, help more students achieve that. Obviously on our campus, but in all of these other spaces that I didn't even anticipate when I started. So it's personal for me, and I can't imagine doing anything else.
Christina, thanks for sharing your insights and the incredible work you've done with the Pearl framework. Before we close, how can our listeners learn more about Pearl and the ELN University of Buffalo?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and our website. So for those who are interested in learning more, if you Google UBELN, our website will come up, and we have a whole webpage built out about our model. My contact information is also right there. I'd be happy to meet with people or exchange emails and whatever is most convenient. So there's always an open invitation to reach out, and certainly our website is there to be utilized as a resource for this.
Absolutely. And we appreciate your dedication to reimagining education. To our audience, thank you for joining us. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep thinking.
Love the term thinkering, and we'll definitely use it in my classroom. The kids will love it.
This is where we can be that peer support network with each other. When the big picture clicks, it's beautiful when you get administrators and teachers together.
You can't be a leader of other people if you can't first lead yourself, right?
Helps the educator have a very clear and structured framework.
Becomes this real community hub. If you're a great educator, you're looking for the most powerful moment. Can we inspire kids to believe that the world needs who they were made to be?
I hope you guys continue to uphold that legacy and continue, finding kids like you.